Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Honey Do Me Podcast. I'm Cass.
And I'm Emma, and this is our podcast where we dive into the bedroom and out of the bedroom and into your friendships and your personal lives. We get into it.
We get into it. Into your pants and into your brain.
Yep.
Yup. Here
like
we
a
are.
flea. Like a sexy little flea. And
That's
we
the
are...
only way I've ever wanted to be described.
No. That's okay.
Meh.
Anyways.
Anyways.
How are you?
I'm fine. Yeah, just doing my best, living life. I'm tired.
Yeah. I mean, it is getting darker earlier, so.
It is, and I notice it. it. My butt
That's-
can feel it.
My
I don't
butt
even know
tingles.
what that would mean.
I don't know either. I don't even know where to go with that. Does your colon close up when it gets cold and dark?
Mm-hmm. I stop pooping in the winter.
I get more and more constipated earlier and earlier in the day.
It is wild until it's
It
just
is.
24/7. Have you ever been like truly constipated?
Yeah,
It's the worst.
it really is actually.
I
It is a hell.
I would argue it's worse than diarrhea.
Yeah, of course of course. Because, well, are we going to go into it?
Yeah, go.
I mean, it's just because diarrhea is too much of a good thing, you know? And constipation
Never
is not enough.
in my life have I heard diarrhea described as too much of a good thing. But you know what? You're right.
So, I don't know. It's just, that's how I feel.
I have been truly constipated once in my life. And I literally told my husband I needed to go to the hospital. I have never felt stomach pain quite like
Wow.
constipation. And I am like allergic to things, like deeply allergic to things that make
You
me
have
very sick.
endometriosis.
And this was worse. I thought it was the end of me. It wasn't.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're still here.
Yeah.
Didn't die of
Constantine
constipation.
didn't take me out.
Constantine didn't take me out. She came, she tried, she failed.
She failed, but she pooped.
She pooped, but then she pooped. Great.
Where do we go from here?
So,
You know
well, let me tell you about my weekend that has
Okay.
nothing to do with this,
Perfect.
if that helps. I attended and bought a ticket to attend. I paid money to be here.
Mhm.
A singles happy hour.
Emma,
Yes, I did.
You
I know.
didn't fucking tell me you were doing this.
I know I didn't. I've been waiting until right now
So I can learn with all of these.
with all of these idiots.
All
Yeah.
of these idiots. No, I love you all, and I'm so excited to be learning right alongside you because we're all best friends.
Yes. So I went to a singles happy hour with my friend. It was, let me tell you the age range. It was 29 to 49.
All right.
But I thought it was promising with the start of 29 because
Yeah.
I don't like starting younger than I am.
Mhm.
And I'm like almost 29. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, perfect. So I went and it was at this cool like bar in town. And my friend and I walk in and it is just us two and like a couple of 40-year-old men. So,
And they were excited.
and they
were pitching tents all over the
excited.
place.
They looked like retired skaters, like skateboarders.
Love. So it was like Tony Hawk.
Yeah, but they're it's just anyway. All this to say, I won't bury the lead any farther. It wasn't a success. It was not great. It was just not my people. There was
Okay.
one kid who was probably our age, definitely into my friend, and I was like, not wasting my time. And you know, I chalk it up to her being blonde. I was like, okay,
And you know
I'm
what?
brunette, she's blonde. There's a difference and there's a type. So
Yeah.
like, that's fine. You don't like me. I didn't like this boy either, but I had a moment.
I get it. I get it.
I had to
We
I had
all-
to do that for myself.
We all get it.
Yeah. But all in all, it just like wasn't amazing.
Mhm.
I gave my number out and it was terrible. And then my friend looked at me. She's like, no, 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 we don't do that. And then she showed me 4 times how to reject getting asked like for your number. So that was really helpful. So I stopped doing that.
Give them.
Well, she's like, oh, I don't really feel comfortable giving out my number, but like, let me take yours. And she's like, and then I can text you. And then that was just such a heavy hitter because like, of course, why would a woman feel comfortable giving out their number to a stranger?
Absolutely.
But then as the night went on, she was just like, no, thank you. Like, oh, I appreciate it, but like, no, thank you. And I was just like, you have ovaries. And that is impressive to watch. So she started with the tips of like easily accessible and then was just like, no, thank you. And I loved that for her.
Oh, that's amazing.
But as we were more and more like uncomfortable and like just not vibing, we sat closer and closer to the bar and then talked more and more with the bartenders. And then we were like, we're really hungry. And the bartenders were like, so are we. And then they were like, and we're getting off the clock. You girls want pasta? And I was like, of course I want pasta. So we went out to dinner with the bartenders.
Were they cute?
One was married who could have been borderline cute, but that would have been me convincing myself because he was in front of me.
Oh, okay.
But he was married. And then the other one, he was from LA and like leaned on the booth with like a foot up the whole time. Not saying all LA people do that, but
like foot in the air, like a gymnast?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. So that was that. He took himself very seriously and he was an interior decorator to a bar that didn't exist yet.
Well, we all have dreams. So
we all have dreams.
They weren't for you, but they are for somebody.
Yes, but
like
they bought us like bottles of wine and pasta, and then we're just like, all right, peace out.
Right.
So it was successful. It just wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I'm really proud of you for pussing yourself out there. As always,
Thank you.
You are getting so good at that.
Thanks.
Just puss first to the world, and we're all happy to see it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But that's my update.
I love it.
I haven't moved in 2 weeks. So anyway.
Amazing. Today we are talking about, I don't know, some tools that do help you push yourself out there, right? We're talking about how to stop people pleasing and how to stop being a fucking good girl. You know what I mean? And I don't mean like being good and kind. I mean like being polite and small and not in the way and not having needs. Like we are done with that. Am I done with it? I'm trying.
I'm trying.
I'm trying. Those are rules I've subscribed to for a very long time.
Yeah.
So they're going to be hard to let go. You're going to hear me talk about that.
We dive in.
We just get into it. It's with Sara Fisk, who is like a coach for people pleasers and good girls.
And good girls, ex-good girls. Yeah. So with that, we'll see you on the other side.
Yeah.
My name is Sara Fisk. I am a master certified coach and instructor. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I have 5 kids and 1 dog and 1 husband, and most of the time I love being with all of them. I love to hike and read, and my favorite thing in the world, if you want to be my friend forever, introduce me to a good dark chocolate because, chocolate really does solve everyone's problems. At least I think so.
Absolutely.
I love that fun fact. I think we should all start with fun facts that we're not expecting anymore.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, we want to talk today about people pleasing. We feel like this is a problem that is prominent in our lives and always has been. And as we grow up and become bigger adults, we would like to stop doing things that kind of hurt. So I believe you phrase it as being a good girl and that you want to help people quit being a good girl. So can you tell us what that means?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to start with just a little bit of like a zoom out because what happens on kind of my end of things is I get women in front of me who say things like, what's the matter with me? Why can't I stop doing this? I know that these behaviors make my life hard. I know that I feel resentful. I feel dread. I feel anxious. What's the matter with me? Why can't I just stop doing this? And there's actually a really, really good answer that helps kind of take us out of that shame and judgment and into compassion. And it's where I love to start this conversation, because when we are born, whoever decided and whatever kind of put everything in motion on this planet that we're on, decided that babies should come into the world totally helpless and utterly dependent on the big people in their lives, right? They cannot do anything for themselves, but what they do have is a cry. And so they cry, and then hopefully a big person comes and changes their diaper, gives them something to eat, makes them comfortable, snuggles them, and loves them. And so in the mind of every single baby, one of the first connections that they make is, I do something and one of my needs gets taken care of. And so baby starts getting bigger, and they start seeing connections between what they do and how those needs get rewarded. What happens when a baby smiles?
Everybody pays attention.
Loses their minds,
Yeah.
right? They're like, oh my God, she's smiling. She's so cute. And baby's like, oh, they like that. So there are some things that I do that they like that gets me big smiles and hugs and cuddles and snuggles. And then as baby gets older, they learn the opposite part of that, which is, oh, there's other things I do that they don't like. I still remember a moment I had with my daughter. We were sitting in a meeting, and she was experimenting with her hands, and she slapped my face. And I grabbed her hand, and I looked at her, and I said, no. And the tone in my voice and the way my eyebrows went down and the fact that I was grabbing her hand sent the message, this is bad, I don't like this. And what did she do? Dissolved into tears and started to cry. So babies learn there are things I do that these big people who are essential to my survival like, and there's things that they don't like. And so that's what their little brains keep track of, because it is the job of every child to win the affection and care of bigger, more capable people, because otherwise they can't survive. And so baby now is a toddler and a kindergartner, and they go into school, and then now there's just more and more and more big people whose preferences they need to learn to keep track of because it directly affects them. And that is the foundation of people pleasing. It is winning the care and affection of bigger, more capable adults so that you can survive. So here's where I say we are all here today because we were really good people pleasers. And that's not bad. That's actually how it's set up. The problem happens when no one teaches us that this behavior of keeping track of what everybody wants and keeping track of their expectations and trying to please them is not the best strategy for our entire life. It's an essential strategy when we're young, but no one ever teaches us there's going to be a time when people pleasing is actually going to hold you back, because you're going to be so focused on everybody outside of you and what they want and what they need and what they expect. You're going to lose connection to you. You're going to lose connection to what you want. And so all humans start out this way, pleasing and learning to keep track of what gets them rewarded and what gets them punished. But humans who are socialized as women, we get an extra layer of what I call the good girl, and I didn't come up with this, but what we all know is good girl behavior. Be nice, be kind, don't rock the boat, don't make other people mad, don't share opinions that are going to be upsetting for other people. And so in any situation, if you're with a bunch of women and you ask them, hey, what are some of the good girl rules? They know exactly what they are. And so on top of just the normal, regular people pleasing that keeps us alive, women get an extra layer of programming about how they are supposed to continue to please other people instead of themselves throughout their lives. And that's what makes them, quote unquote, good.
How does being a good girl negatively impact our lives?
It's the most negative impact is that it's not actually your life that you are living. Mm-hmm. You are living the life that you think everybody else thinks you should live. You are living the desires and needs of your parents. You are living what your culture or your religious group or your community group has told you makes you, quote unquote, good. And so I mean, to me, the saddest part of living those good girl rules is that it's not really your life, and you never get to settle in and just feel ease and self-connection because you're just constantly worried about meeting other people's expectations and doing what they want.
But it's so comfortable to just not rock the boat, and I get so much praise that the idea of not being a good girl, not always being nice and good, feels like I want to puke.
And it's kind of confusing. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead, you.
It's confusing because we people please because it feels good to not rock the boat, and at the same time, 30 seconds after we're done, it hurts so much for a lot longer if it's something that, like, you know, it's not true and authentic to you, like what you said or what you now have to do or what you maybe didn't say. And so it's hard that we choose to do something that only feels good for a little amount of time, and somehow we find that to be easier in a way.
I agree 100%. And I'll just kind of put some different words around that and give it back to you, and you tell me what you think. People pleasing is the discomfort we are used to. We are used to making ourselves feel small. We are used to editing our words. We are used to pretending that everything's fine. We are used to performing the role that we think is expected of us. But underneath, you're right, there's resentment, there's fear, there's dread, there is sadness, there's grief. But that's just the discomfort that we're like, yeah, I've felt like that for like the past 20 years. That I know that song and dance. Not people pleasing is also uncomfortable, but it is a different kind of discomfort that in the beginning, I'm not going to lie, actually feels a little harder because it is new. It's a discomfort that you are not yet used to. The difference is being in that good girl rule keeping cycle just keeps you in the expectations of other people. It teaches other people that you're the one who's going to deliver what they want, do what they want. You'll say yes, you'll take on the extra load. And it reinforces that. And so you just get more of it. And when you take on the challenge of learning to not people please, it does feel harder in the beginning. But the difference is it undoes that cycle and gives you a lot of access to freedom and to creating the life that you actually want.
And I can't wait to get into the differences in discomfort and learn a new type of discomfort. Because masochist, I love it. Let's get into it. But I also want to know how this relates to sex a little bit too. How does being a people pleaser kind of affect that?
The whole good girl story is my body is for someone else. My body is supposed to look like someone else wants it to look, right? Whether they are the traditional like beauty standards that were decided by a bunch of men in boardrooms so that they could all design these products to sell us, right? Whether it's traditional beauty standards or just someone else's beauty standards other than mine. When I believe that my body is for someone else, then I don't inhabit my own body. I'm only looking at, it's like there's a split that happens. I am walking around the world, but I'm also keeping track of what does he think of my body? What does she think of my body? What about them? What about them? What about them? And so I become the watcher of other people's reactions to my body. And that matters more than me feeling connected and loved in my own body. That's the first thing that happens. The second thing is that when you're in the bedroom and my body doesn't belong to me, my body belongs to this other person, their pleasure is more important than mine. And they become the focus of whatever sexual connection, sexual activity, sexual, experience you're having. And again, we become like the supporting actress of someone else having the sexual experience that we think they should be having because that's what we've been taught. So I'm not speaking up about what I want. Hell, I don't even know if I know what I want, right? Because I've just been conditioned to show up for other people. I pretend that things feel good when they don't. I go into kind of a performance mode that I think my partner wants. And again, it's not about me. I am not the center of any of the pleasure seeking that sex is, that's what it's supposed to provide us. It just becomes all about the other person.
So what are some of these rules that we should start considering breaking? Because I wouldn't consider myself a rule breaker. It makes me nervous. So I would love to start dipping my toe into what they are.
Okay. One of the good girl rules that we might consider is how often we are taught to apologize, right? We apologize for everything, and it's automatic. True story, happened a couple weeks ago. I'm in the grocery store. A man in an obvious hurry is coming at me with his shopping cart, and I apologize for not getting out of his way fast enough, right? Just automatic. So looking at the way that we apologize for everything, and we do it because we don't want to be blamed or get into trouble for anything, and we want people to think we're nice and considerate. And so what would it be like to not apologize unless you actually hurt someone? That might be something to consider. Is that bringing some stuff up?
Yeah.
It's almost like it's just such a filler word. It's like,
Yes.
you know, I'm sorry
Yes.
is so quick and easy because it fills the space and it brings accountability and awkwardness like back to yourself where it feels a little bit more manageable, but then it also like makes it completely your fault.
Yeah, that's it. And apologizing is a lot like the second rule that I would consider. Yeah, I'm throwing out, Cass, for your consideration to break.
I appreciate
and that is how often good girls ask for permission. Is it okay if I? Do you mind if I? We ask for permission to do things that we should not be asking for permission for. Case in point, I had a client tell me today that she has she sees me as her coach and she has a separate therapist. And we were talking about this issue and she said, oh my gosh, I emailed my therapist today and said, hey, is it okay if I change my appointment from Friday? And I'm like, yeah. We're not, that's like not a permission thing, right? But we ask permission to make sure that we are not going to offend anyone, that everybody knows that we're being nice and polite. And rather than ask, make it a statement. I need to change my appointment from Friday to Monday. And we can be kind and polite. Thanks for accommodating me. I appreciate your flexibility. Whatever. But this apologizing and asking for permission are two of the habits that keep us in this like small and like one down position from the other people in our lives.
Yeah, I'm thinking about apologizing and how I say I'm like, if I were to only say I'm sorry when I'm actually sorry, I would say it probably 99% less than I actually do. And maybe I need to be more sorry than that. But I think a time that I tend to say sorry when it is especially like, I don't know, not a real thing, is when I ask for something. If I'm like, oh, sorry, can you grab that for me? Oh, sorry, like, can you do this? Like if I'm asking my husband for something and it's like, it doesn't feel good. Like I don't feel happy that I said it that way. And I don't usually feel, grateful that it ended up happening. Like just all around, it kind of feels like an icky situation. Like I can hear like the insecurity coming out of me. And that's to somebody that like, I'm pretty comfortable bossing around. So
you wed your life to.
Yeah.
I do that at work or like with people around the office and I'm asking for them to assist me with a task that is their job. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry to nag you. I'm the worst. I'm so lame for what I'm about to say, but would you mind doing your job a little bit over here? Or I can totally do it. I would love to do it. Actually, if you wouldn't mind sitting down, I'll do it. Thank you for the opportunity. And so I totally get what you mean about the way you phrase it.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about what would it sound like to just take the apology out. So Cass, with your husband, hey honey, can I please have the whatever?
Yeah, that would feel a lot better.
It would feel a lot better, but here's my question. When you think about doing that, what feeling comes up for you? Is there any discomfort there?
Like it feels more powerful, but it also feels like, I don't know, I'm being too needy. I don't know, because I think I'm like preemptively apologizing for having needs.
That's right.
Which
Yeah.
it's like, I definitely deserve to have needs. We all have needs. But for some reason, mine just feel like way more than everybody else's, even though it's literally, can you grab me my water bottle or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's so insightful that you're like, I'm apologizing for having needs. And by apologizing, I'm hoping that you'll forgive me for having this need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind.
But here's what I have found. Once we can identify the discomfort that we're going to have to let ourselves feel. So, Cass, for you, it would be the discomfort that comes up when I say to you, Cass, you are a person with needs. What's the feeling that comes up there?
Kind of feels like a lump in my throat. Like, I think I would rather apologize for the needs and kind of pretend I don't have them. So that way, if they don't get met, I don't have to feel disappointed and sad that somebody didn't meet them.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you would have to feel a little bit of maybe nervousness or fear that those needs wouldn't be met.
Mm-hmm.
But that actually opens the door with your husband to have more vulnerability and deeper connection, which meets both of your needs.
I suppose that would actually, yes, definitely be the case.
And the only reason I can say that with any kind of like authority and confidence is because I have been married for almost 26 years and to the same man nonetheless, wild. But that's the thing. When we're both pretending and performing for each other, we actually are not getting to know the real person that we are married to. We're interacting and having a relationship with just this kind of veneer or this facade that I think is okay. And I spent a lot of years in my marriage like that, pretending I didn't need help, pretending I could do it by myself, trying to be the strong one who could take on whatever happened. Like, no, it's fine. I don't need you. I can do it by myself. And it was lonely and it was sad. And he didn't feel needed because I did a really good job of that, of not having any needs.
Because I'm really good at it. So I want to circle back and re-say what you just said, because that's what struck me, is you're saying that a part of people pleasing and feeling guilty for having needs or doing what you need yourself instead of asking for help is out of fear of not getting our needs met when we ask for it.
Yeah, because good girls don't have needs, right? We're just good. We're easygoing. We are accommodating. If everyone listening right now could just stop for a second and think, how often were you praised for, you're just such an easygoing kid. You're so nice. It's so easy to be around you because you just don't have needs, right? You don't demand anything of me. And when we get praised for that, remember these are our little selves that connects like, oh, they like it when I don't have needs. That's what I need to do. And so all these pesky little needs, I just shove them down or I dismiss them. And I tell myself, oh, why are you so dramatic for wanting that? Don't want it. Why are you so needy? You shouldn't be needy. And then I just reinforce that to myself. And worse, I believe that there's no one out there who will love the real me with all my needs.
That one hits for me because I feel like I grew up being told I was laid back overall. Yeah. And that I was easy to talk to, easy to approach with things, and someone relatively easy to bounce things off of. And I do love that part of myself, but I feel terrible when I need boundaries to go up because I am burnt out and I am not chill right now, or I am not laid back about XYZ. And that totally brings this like identity crisis thing, but also resentment that like, how could you people also not know that I am not super chill and super laid back all the time? But it's like, oh, because I don't talk about it. Because I
I don't
don't bring
let
it
you
up.
see that part of me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Whoa.
One thing you said that really, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, to be super like tender about this. And it's, I don't let you see this because I'm afraid that if I let you see it, you will reject me. And that rejection is worse than pretending I don't have needs.
It really struck me when you said, like, they like it that I don't have needs. Like, they like it that I'm easy. Because it just makes me think, like, oh, they like it when I'm less. Like, they like it when I'm less than who I actually am. And that's easier. And it's like, of course I want people to like me. I don't think it's, like, I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's a bad thing to want people to like you. But it's like, how do we know when we're basing too much of ourselves on that? Because I don't want to take away the part of me that wants other people to like me. I don't want to be a psychopath. But like, where's the middle ground? Because there has to be a middle ground between like what I've been doing and psychopath. I hope. No, I hope that's not concentric.
You named it. No, I actually, that's exactly how I talk about it, because we know people who do not, hang on, can I swear?
Yes,
absolutely.
Okay. We know people who do not give a shit about anybody else, right? Mm-hmm. Those people are the psychopaths, the narcissists, the people who might have something like diagnosably wrong, or diagnosably, let's put it this way, diagnosably going on with them, okay? And we are wired for connection. We are wired to be in community, to be in relationships. We are meant to have two parts in our lives when it comes to relationships. Interdependence, which is where we are connected with each other and vulnerable and meeting each other's needs, and independence, which is where we are connected to ourselves and we are capable of meeting some of our own needs. And we're meant to swing back and forth between that independence and interdependence. It's how mammals are made. We can't get away from it. And so if you go back to, kind of the way I set it up with babies have to learn that everybody else's needs are more important than mine, because I need them to survive and I can't make them mad, and I need them to like me and take care of me. And so that's how it is in the beginning. Everybody else's needs are more important than mine. So I have one hand that's like really high above the other hand to kind of illustrate that. What happens when we, and this is so funny because it's one of the primary things that the women I talk to are worried about. Like, well, if I stop people pleasing, people are going to think I'm a bitch. People are going to think I'm mean. And so what they're imagining is a flip-flop where their needs are the only ones that matter, and they only take care of themselves. They only care about themselves. Their needs and wants and expectations are the biggest in the room, and fuck everybody else. That's psychopath, right? And so what I am trying to teach women to feel into is this: equality, where my needs matter just as much as yours and yours matter just as much as mine. And what I do is I have to connect to myself really deeply. And I have to know when it's okay for me to choose you and your needs, and when I need to choose myself and my needs. And I swing back and forth between interdependence, when I choose you and you choose me, and independence, when sometimes I have to choose myself and take care of myself. But because I am connected to what I want, I trust myself to do that. And then because I trust myself, I can trust you, and we can talk about it. And it's not, there isn't a science, there isn't a 10-step rule I can give you. But when people are in loving, connected, reciprocal, responsive relationships, that's what we do. Sometimes I choose you, sometimes I choose me. And I give you the same freedom.
So with this change, I'm sure we have to get comfortable with disappointing people at first, and get, like we said earlier, get comfortable with a new type of discomfort. So where the fuck do we begin with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I love to tell my clients that what we're going to do in all of the like relationship scenarios that we have, we're going to start with the easiest ones first. All of us have relationships where there is more codependency or the risk feels higher. For some people, that's with a parent or a family member. And then we all have other relationships that don't feel as messy or feel very easy. One of my favorite examples is like the coffee barista. I had a client, she would go into her local Starbucks on her way to work. She said to me like 6 out of 10 times she would get the wrong drink. And so
A lot of times.
that's a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
And she's just kind of like, oh, well, I guess this is what I get today, right? When I asked her, how risky does it feel to push the drink back across the counter and say, will you please check that? I don't think this is what I ordered. And she was like, oh my God, I could never do that. I could never. So for her, that actually felt very risky. And so when we're thinking about where to start, the first thing to do is to just find a situation that doesn't feel as risky as the others. Now, for her, actually, everything felt risky. And so we just decided to start with the Starbucks barista. So the first step that I teach my clients is you actually have to have a pause. When there's some kind of interaction that you know is going to happen, when you know you're going to want to people please, you have to pause because we all have such habitual patterns in place. They just kind of take us right along. So she was used to walking into Starbucks, crossing her fingers that she would get the drink she ordered. But we built in a pause, which was actually before she even walked in the door. And in that pause, she is practicing what she's going to say. We built in the pause for her before she even walked into the door. Because what she had already done is she had predicted, this is step number 2, you have to predict what it's going to take to either people please or not. So she's like, I already know this. If I just take the drink that I'm given and I people please and I don't say anything, I am now drinking something that I didn't order that I may not even necessarily like. If I do that, I'm going to be feeling kind of small and unimportant and like I don't even matter enough to get the right drink. If I take the other path where I push the drink across and I say, this isn't what I ordered, I am going to be feeling super anxious. So the second step is to predict what is it going to be like to people please or to not people please. That is essential, and to name the emotions is really helpful because step number 3 is you're going to pick which one you want. It's really important to know your reasons. Your eyes just bugged out.
I know. I don't know why that hit me so hard. It feels like a game show of like, would you rather? And they're both terrible.
Yeah. Which is why it's really important to do this in lower risk situations first, because you have to make a choice. So for the first couple times she went back into Starbucks, she actually just took the drink. It was way too risky for her. So then we added another step. And after she had looked at her 2 options and predicted what she was going to feel in either one, and she was able to really pick, I am going to send the drink back because I want to stop feeling so small, like I don't matter. I had her process that feeling beforehand. I had her process all of the anxiety and the fear that she was going to feel as she slid that drink back across the counter. I had her imagine herself doing it 10 times before she actually even did it. We created a little movie of her going into the Starbucks, waiting for her drink. It's wrong. She takes a deep breath. She pushes the drink back over. She says, I'm sorry, can we look at this again? It's not what I ordered. And do you notice that apology that I just kind of slipped in there, even just unconsciously? It happens all the time. And so then she had run that movie. She had done the mental rehearsal so many times that when it actually happened, she was able to handle it. She felt super nervous and she felt like she was going to die, but she did it. And then she had success. And it feels so amazing to see yourself do something hard that now all she needed was more practice.
And now she has the words.
And she
That's
has
the
the
hardest
words. That's
part.
exactly it.
When you're explaining how to do it, I was like, okay, so you start with, I am so sorry. Obviously.
No, strike that. Strike that.
I'm the worst.
I'm the worst.
I'm so
Scum.
sorry. Yeah.
When you said pick, obviously Emma and I both were like, oh my God, because it's just, you don't think of it that way. Of course, we're picking every single day what we're going to do, but it feels like an automatic choice because we've been doing it for so many years. And when you talk about it like picking, I think about how the person I'm most comfortable disappointing is myself. And so how do we start to work through that? Like, yes, we want to work on disappointing other people, but we probably want to work on disappointing ourselves less.
First of all, it would be to find a scenario that is lower risk for disappointing someone else. That would be the first thing. But then the second thing, and Cass, if you don't mind, I'm just going to ask you this question. When you think about disappointing yourself, how does that feel for you?
I mean, the surface level of that is like, well, it's just easier to disappoint myself than somebody else because then they'll still like me.
Okay. But if you sit with it and you kind of go below that layer, what's there?
It definitely feels sad. Like it feels sad to let myself down.
That sadness is your, whatever you want to call it, your body, your soul's way of telling you, we don't like this.
I feel like what came up for me with you pick, is the obvious pointing out that we have a choice in how we feel and that we can choose to think differently about ourselves or to treat ourselves differently. And that's within our control. And sure, that opens up a whole new can of worms of like what that's going to look like and a new discomfort like we're talking about. But there's also a lot of power in that. And I think that's also what felt so shocking about like pick. It was like, oh, fuck. Okay, wait, I get to choose now actually how this is about to play out. Instead of when people pleasing comes up for me, it doesn't feel like a choice. And I think Cass, you may have kind of said this earlier where it's like, it doesn't feel like a choice because it just feels easier. So that's not a choice. That's just what happens. But yeah, it does feel like a choice when you put it that way. And that makes me look at it differently, I guess.
Yeah, and just to be like super gracious with ourselves. The good girl paradigm is we don't choose, we are chosen, right? We are the ones who just make ourselves choosable. And if we get chosen, then we have made it. And if someone unchooses us, then we are wrecked. And so this paradigm shift of like, no, I am actually a participant in this choosing process. I also do the choosing is such a radical shift everywhere from, interpersonal platonic relationships to intimate sexual romantic relationships, because it's not the passivity of just kind of, I'm just here to be and do whatever you want. You're the star of the show becomes a more inclusive, co-created experience. And that's amazing.
Definitely.
So
I know.
If we are, going into one of these disappointing scenarios where we know we're going to disappoint somebody, I think that could be considered a difficult conversation. So can you give us some more tips for navigating difficult conversations?
Absolutely. One of the quotes that really guides my work a lot is by German philosopher guy Friedrich Nietzsche. And he said, most people prefer dishonest peace over honest conflict. And I like to switch that around just a little bit. It's not that we prefer dishonest peace. It's just what we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the thing that we know how to create because we know how to pretend. We know how to not say things. We know how to accommodate. And so the first thing that we need to understand about a difficult conversation is that it's difficult for a reason. We're going to have to feel a new uncomfortable emotion. But a lot of the same steps that I talked about with my client and Starbucks apply. Like, number one, I have to be able to visualize myself having a different conversation. So instead of saying, sure, no problem, boss, I'm happy to serve on that extra volunteer mentoring committee for the 5th time in a row, right? Maybe what I want to say is, you know what? That's actually not something that fits in my schedule. So I'm preparing to have this difficult conversation. I look at all of my options. I try to put it into words as best I can. And then I ask myself, if I say, sure, boss, I'm happy to serve on that committee and mentor the guy for the 5th time, what am I going to be feeling? Resentment, some irritation, frustration, and I'm going to be feeling like mad at myself. Okay, so that's this option. This option over here, that's not something that fits in my schedule at this time. Oh my God, I'm going to feel like wildly uncomfortable and so anxious. And I'm actually going to maybe worry that it might affect my job. Which one do I want? Which of those discomforts do I want to lean into? And let me say right here, sometimes we will choose to people please. And I don't call it people pleasing as long as you are doing it consciously. Like if I am choosing like, hey, next year I'm going to ask for a promotion and a raise, and it's going to look really good on my resume if I serve on this committee for the 5th time. So I'm going to do it. But then it's not people pleasing anymore because I've made it conscious and I've chosen because I like my reasons. So if I'm going to choose the people pleasing route, great. I don't need to do anything else. But if I have decided that actually my growth is to say, I'm not available to be on that committee this time around, it doesn't fit into my schedule. Now what I have to do is create the movie of myself having the meeting, saying the words, oh my gosh, letting all that emotion and that anxiety come up, and I just take really good care of myself. I like to teach my clients to just take their hand and put it on their chest when they're practicing. It feels so good to just have some contact with your body. It helps centers you. It helps give you something to focus on. And then in a difficult conversation, a really easy workaround is to just take one wrist and wrap your opposite hand around that wrist and just squeeze a little bit, because that can remind you during the conversation, it's all right. We practice this. You're doing great. That anxiety is normal. Good job. So choosing the type of response that you want to have in the conversation, then creating the movie and processing some of those feelings ahead of time, practicing it, and then taking really good care of yourself, no matter what happens in the conversation, are really essential. Because sometimes conversations don't go the way we want, and it's really easy to blame ourselves. But then you just have to remember, you made the best decision you knew how. And so now is the time to be really gracious and generous with yourself and figure out anything that needs to be figured out from there.
What if you mess up mid-conversation? Like, what if you say something and you're like, you're totally people pleasing and you don't want to, and you realize it halfway through? Do you have any good like backtracking methods?
Yes, that's where I go back to. You take a pause. It has to be a physical pause, because what happens when you're people pleasing and you're like, oh my God, I can't stop. Your nervous system is all pinged and you're getting really, too much is happening too fast. And so I would literally say, I need a bio break. I will be right back. Right? I need to go to the bathroom. I'll be back in just a second. Or I need to press pause on this conversation. I'll be back in just a little bit. Or I need to press pause. Can we pick this up again tomorrow? Because what is essential is that I have a minute to calm myself down. Because you're exactly right. All of those habits that have been formed over decades of doing this are not going to be dislodged in one easy, one fell swoop. It's so likely that we fall into these patterns again. And so to be gracious and kind and to pause is the only way. Because then when I pause, I can come back to myself. I can remember what it is that I'm trying to be doing. And I can walk back into that conversation and say, what I meant to say is, I'm actually not available to be on that committee this time around. Thank you for thinking of me. If my schedule frees up again, I'll let you know.
Mm-hmm. Sounds so clear when you say it. And it still feels like nice and genuine when you say it like that.
And that's the thing, is that we have been taught that niceness is essential. And we just have this warped idea of what mean and rude is. And it's amazing to me because I get that same reaction from a lot of people I talk to. They're like, oh, but those words, I could say those words. Mm-hmm. And so all it is a matter of pausing and planning out what's going to happen and making that mental movie and rehearsal. And then it becomes, I'm not going to say a lot easier, but it becomes doable.
Mm-hmm. This is my last question that I have with it. And this might be a bigger question, but what do you do with the resentment that we've talked about building up? When you have people pleased and now you kind of have resentment in certain relationships, like what do you do with that once you have recognized it and are trying to work past it?
That's a great question. First thing is to recognize that resentment comes from you, your body, your soul, your spirit, whatever you want to call that, telling you, I need you to take better care of us. Like this resentment is here because you have not taken good care of us. And so it's that recognition that leads to the question, okay, how do I better need to take care of myself? And you decide that with you first. And then it's time to have a conversation with the other person and say, I have been feeling some resentment because I have not been taking good care of myself. Sometimes I know you feel that, and it feels like I'm blaming you. But what I want you to understand is that first and foremost, my resentment is about me not taking the care of myself that I need. Mm-hmm. So, moving forward, here is how I am going to be taking care of myself. Here is what I want either us to agree on together, or I just want to inform you that this is how I will be taking care of myself. And then that conversation, depending on the person and how they respond, will develop. Some people are going to be mad because they like the version of you that is willing to prioritize them. They like the fact that you don't have boundaries. They like the fact that you don't have limitations and that you're willing to please them. And that's always interesting because then you get to have a conversation about that. Hey, I notice that this seems to be frustrating to you and irritating to you. I understand that because for a long time, the dynamic has been that I try really hard to please you. Are you willing to work out a new dynamic in our relationship where you feeling good about me isn't dependent on me pleasing you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that feels good. I'm going to listen to that
Doesn't
for the next
it?
5 years, but that was a beautiful way to answer that question. So thank you.
I'm so glad. It's just so many of us live with so much resentment. And we tend, because people pleasers think that all of these things just happen to them, they feel very powerless. They feel like they don't have any control over the situation. But first and foremost, what I want people listening to this who have a lot of resentment, that resentment is trying to tell you something. And the message is, it's time to take better care of you.
Mm-hmm. Finally, a way to harness it, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like, that is such a complicated feeling because you don't know who it belongs to. And so the way that you encapsulated it, it does feel manageable because now it's like, of course, like I know it's me, but also I think it might be you, but I think it's mine. So I loved that. Thank you.
I'm so glad. You're so welcome.
Are there any last minute thoughts on people pleasing or being a good girl, quitting being a good girl that you want to make sure we cover before we close out?
Yes. Here's what I want to say. Having been the goodest of girls, right? I tell the story and it's funny, but it's true. I was raised a member of a very conservative religious group, and I was literally like a 40-year-old woman still going to church because I didn't want to make my parents mad by leaving, right? I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't agree with a lot of it. And so I understand this journey very intimately. And the amount of fear that I lived with, the amount of hypervigilance, always worrying about what was other people were thinking. Were they mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Were they offended? Is it okay? And all the time I spent like trying to make up for that, trying to be nice to them, trying to make overtures to reestablish whatever, connection and friendship I thought I had lost when they got mad at me because I did something that I didn't even know I had done, right? That dynamic is really familiar. That is that's one way to live. It is. And all I want is if you are a woman who is listening to this, I want you to think about your reasons for choosing that. And if you want it, choose it for reasons that you like. If you don't want that, there is another option that leads to freedom and sovereignty and feeling like a powerful participant in your own life. And here's the thing, it makes all of your relationships amazing. Because now you can show up and you can say, hey, that doesn't really work for me. What I can do is this. Or, I love when you do this. This isn't working for me so much. Can we think about doing a different, can we create a different dynamic together? I am a person who, I love people. I love to be in relationships with people. And what my friends know about me now is that if I say no, it's because I have good reasons for saying no. If I say yes, I am a yes, 100%. I can be honest. I can be upfront. I can say what I like and what I don't like. And there are some relationships that I don't have anymore because those people benefited from that old version of me. But the kind of freedom that I feel, the kind of love and connectedness and vulnerability that I am able to have inside of these relationships, it was not available to me when I was spending all of my time pretending and performing. And so as humans, our deepest satisfaction, one of the places we can get deepest satisfaction is in our relationships with other people. And in a really kind of non-intuitive way, when we knock off the people pleasing, it opens the door to even more fulfillment across the board in all of our relationships.
Amazing. Beautiful closer. Where can our listeners continue connecting with you after this episode?
I have a website, sarafisk.coach. It is .coach and not .com. I'm on Instagram. And I have a free Facebook group for anyone who's interested in getting to know what this process is like. The Instagram or the Facebook group is where I spend a lot of time every week just coaching people. I take you through the challenges that I actually do inside my paid group coaching program. It is a lot of fun, and I would love to invite anyone who is interested to join.
You know, it's a good hour-long hangout when you don't look down at your notes like once. Mm-hmm. And that's what it was like hanging out with Sara and investigating what it means to be a people pleaser and a good girl and not wanting to do that anymore. she just had so much grace, I feel like, for that learning period too, because I love that she said it's never going to be like you won't be a people pleaser. There's just time and place for things to be a pleaser.
Because sometimes that feels good. Sometimes it feels good and right to please somebody else, like in the bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. So I will forever be thankful to Sara for being on the podcast today. And thank you, honeys, for hanging out with us.
Yeah, you can head on over to Apple Podcasts to rate, review, and subscribe to Honey Do Me. You can leave us a written review, rate us on Spotify, watch on YouTube. If you ever have a topic you want to hear about, a question for a guest, or something you just want us gals to chat through, you can submit that at the link in our bios at Honey Do Me Podcast, or email us at honeydomepodcast@gmail.com. But most of all, we think you're fantastic, and we hope you're feeling real bad after this episode.
That pleased me. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.